AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she asked me to lie about why I couldn't be there. I've always considered myself close to my family, especially my younger sister, Claire. We grew up in a small town and were basically inseparable throughout our childhood. I'm older by 4 years, so naturally, I spent a lot of time looking out for her, guiding her, and occasionally scolding her when she made questionable decisions. Despite some typical sibling rivalry, we've always had each other's backs. That is, until recently. Claire got engaged to a man named Jeremy about a year ago. From the beginning, I had my reservations. Jeremy seems like a nice guy on the surface, but he's controlling in ways that aren't immediately obvious. My parents love him, and Claire seems happy, so I try to keep my opinions to myself. I figure it wasn't my place to interfere in her adult life. However, things started to get awkward when the wedding planning began. Claire asked me to help with some of the arrangements, which I was happy to do initially, until the conversation started veering into territory I wasn't comfortable with. The first major red flag for me came when Claire asked me to tell certain relatives that I couldn't attend her bridal shower due to a work emergency. At first, I was confused because I didn't have any work obligations during that time. She explained that Jeremy didn't want some of our extended family there, particularly our cousin Amanda, who has a reputation for being dramatic and a bit judgmental. Claire insisted that if I attended the shower, I would have to avoid Amanda or lie about why I couldn't make it. I told her I didn't feel right lying to family members just to make someone else feel comfortable. Claire got upset and accused me of being selfish and choosing sides. I thought it was a minor issue, but apparently it was only the beginning. As the wedding date drew closer, the request became more intense. She asked me not to bring my boyfriend to the rehearsal dinner because Jeremy didn't want anyone there who might cause a scene. When I politely refused, she said, "If you really loved me, you'd understand." I started noticing a pattern. It wasn't about the wedding. It was about controlling the narrative and controlling everyone around her. I tried talking to Claire calmly about how I felt, but she dismissed my concerns as overreactions. Our conversations would inevitably end with her crying and me feeling guilty, even though I hadn't actually done anything wrong. 2 months ago, she dropped the biggest bombshell. She asked me to write a fake email to my employer explaining why I couldn't attend the wedding. According to her, Jeremy's family wanted the guest list limited, and my attendance would complicate things. I was stunned. I have a stable job that I genuinely love, and I've never had to fabricate stories about work to avoid family events. I asked her why it couldn't just be a private conversation between us, and she said it wouldn't be convincing. She wanted me to make it seem official. I refused outright. I told her I couldn't lie on an official work document or email. She yelled at me, called me selfish, and said I was making this about me, not her big day. I explained that my issue wasn't about me, but about ethics, honesty, and the fact that I couldn't compromise my integrity to appease someone else's insecurities. That didn't matter to her. Over the next few weeks, she tried every angle. She sent me long messages detailing how upset she would be if I didn't lie. She guilt-tripped me by saying she'd feel abandoned, and she even tried to manipulate my parents into pressuring me. The tension became unbearable. Our once close relationship deteriorated into daily arguments over minor things, like whether I should attend the dress fitting or help with seating arrangements. I started feeling like I was walking on eggshells around her. My parents sided with her at first, but eventually, even they recognized that she was asking me to do something unethical. They advised me to set boundaries, which I did repeatedly. Finally, last week, she called me and said she wanted a definitive answer. Would I write the fake work email or not? I calmly told her no. I explained that I couldn't lie, and if that meant not attending the wedding, then that was a consequence I would have to accept. She screamed, cursed at me, and hung up. I haven't spoken to her since. She's been texting and calling our parents, claiming I'm destroying the family and sabotaging her happiness. My parents have been supportive, but caught in the middle, which is heartbreaking because I love them too. I'm now labeled as the villain sister in her story, despite the fact that I've done nothing other than refuse to compromise my values. My friends are split on the issue. Some say I'm justified. Lying to your employer about a personal matter for someone else's convenience is extreme. Others argue that weddings are a once-in-a-lifetime event and that I should bite the bullet and just do it to maintain family peace. I honestly feel torn. I love my sister and would have loved to attend her wedding under normal circumstances. But I can't bring myself to lie for the sake of avoiding her anger or satisfying her controlling behavior. I also worry that if I give in now, it will only set a precedent, making her think it's acceptable to manipulate me in the future. So here I am, stuck in an impossible situation. I feel like I've chosen integrity over family harmony, which is painful. But every time I think about writing that email, I feel sick to my stomach. I know that if I refuse, it might permanently damage my relationship with Claire. But if I lie, I might permanently damage my own sense of self. AITA for refusing to lie about why I can't attend my sister's wedding, even if it means not being there at all. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay at my house after an incident last holiday. I, 32F, have a fairly predictable life. I work from home as a graphic designer, live alone in a modest apartment, and generally keep to a quiet routine. My younger sister, Mia, 28F, is a single mom with 3 kids. Lucas, 10M, Emma, 7F, and Sophie, 5F. She's always been a bit free-spirited when it comes to parenting, and while I try not to judge, it sometimes causes friction between us. Last Christmas, she asked if her kids could stay at my place for a few days while she visited some distant relatives. I usually enjoy the kids and have them over occasionally, but this time I hesitated because I had a big project deadline. I told her I might not be able to host them for an extended period because of work, but she insisted it would be just a couple of days and that it would be fun for them. Reluctantly, I agreed, thinking I could manage a short stay. From the moment they arrived, chaos ensued. Lucas immediately claimed my office as his fort and refused to leave, slamming the door repeatedly despite my requests. Emma spilled juice all over the couch within 5 minutes of arrival. Sophie, who's usually pretty calm, began crying incessantly because she wanted to watch cartoons on my laptop. I tried to redirect them, gave them snacks, and even set up a little movie corner, but nothing worked. It got worse. The kids started sneaking into areas I had explicitly asked them to stay out of. Lucas got into my desk drawers, took some pens, and drew all over my sketch pad. Emma climbed onto my kitchen counter to reach the cookie jar, fell, and bruised her arm. I rushed her to the bathroom and tried to calm her down while secretly panicking that she might need more than basic first aid. Sophie, meanwhile, decided it was a good time to test my cat's patience. The cat scratched her face, leaving a small cut. By the second day, I was exhausted. I had barely slept, my apartment looked like a hurricane had hit, and I hadn't been able to focus on work at all. I called Mia to explain that maybe it would be better if she picked them up earlier than planned. She got defensive, claiming I was overreacting and that the kids were being kids. I told her politely that I understood that, but I had boundaries, and it was not sustainable for me to host them while working. She left it there, but sounded annoyed. Things escalated a few months later. Mia asked if I could watch the kids for a week while she went on a work trip. I refused outright, explaining what happened last time and that I wasn't comfortable with such a long stay. She accused me of being selfish and unsupportive. I tried to reason with her. I love spending time with them, but I have responsibilities too, and last time it was overwhelming. I can't repeat that week-long scenario without serious consequences for my work and mental health. After that, our communication became tense. She would drop comments on social media about family members who can't handle kids and post pictures of her children at other relatives' houses with captions about how fun it was. I didn't respond, but I felt guilty for some reason, like I was letting her down. A few weeks ago, Mia reached out again, asking if I could have the kids over for a weekend because she had a conference. I was immediately hesitant. I explained in detail why I couldn't: my work schedule, the previous experience, and my apartment's limited space. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like they love being at your place, and you're the only aunt they have. I stood my ground and refused. She ended the conversation curtly, and since then, she's been cold towards me. I told my parents about this situation, and they had mixed reactions. My mom said I should make more effort because they're your niece and nephews, and that I'm too rigid. My dad, however, said he understood that I was setting healthy boundaries and that Mia should respect them. My friends mostly agree with my stance, emphasizing that I have every right to protect my home and mental space. Mia hasn't asked directly since then, but I know she's still upset. She's been posting family pictures where the kids are having fun with cousins and friends, and I feel a pang of guilt every time I see them. I also worry that I might be seen as the bad aunt by my nieces and nephews, even though I genuinely like spending time with them in smaller doses. So, AITA for refusing to host my sister's kids after the previous incident? I'm trying to balance my own life and responsibilities while still caring for my family, but the tension with my sister has made me question whether I'm being too strict or selfish. I'm open to solutions that don't compromise my boundaries, but I also want to maintain a relationship with my nieces and nephews without putting myself through what happened last holiday. I feel like I'm stuck between being a responsible adult and being a supportive aunt, and I don't know if there's a way to do both. AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiance's behavior? So I, 32F, have always been really close with my younger brother, Sam, 29M. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we've stayed in constant contact. Our parents divorced when we were kids, and Sam and I basically became each other's support system. I thought I'd be one of the first people he told when he started dating anyone seriously, but last year he surprised me by introducing me to his fiancée, Rachel, 28F. From the first meeting, something about her rubbed me the wrong way, but I try to keep an open mind because Sam was genuinely happy. Rachel is extremely opinionated and has a very controlling personality, which I noticed almost immediately. She dominated every conversation during the dinner she invited me to, and she subtly criticized everything I did, from the way I held my fork to how I dressed. I try to brush it off as first meeting nerves, but over the next few months, it became a pattern. She would call Sam multiple times a day to check in, and he started canceling our usual weekend plans. Whenever I tried to hang out with him without her, Rachel would make passive-aggressive comments about how he should spend time with his fiancée instead of me. I tried to be understanding, thinking she might just be insecure, but it escalated. Fast forward to the engagement. Sam and Rachel got engaged in December, and I got an invitation to the wedding. I was excited at first, but as the planning went on, Rachel's behavior became unbearable. She started sending me very specific instructions about what I could and couldn't wear, what I could bring, and even how I should behave at the reception. For example, she told me that I had to smile at all times during the ceremony and reception, and that I should refrain from talking to any of Sam's friends because they were old, boring, and drama-prone. She also sent me a long list of dietary restrictions she expected me to follow, not because of allergies or anything, just because she thought certain foods were unclean. I initially tried to comply, thinking it would make things easier and allow me to support my brother, but the more I interacted with her, the more controlling and judgmental she became. The last straw was when she asked me to write a speech for the reception about how wonderful she is, specifically mentioning her unparalleled taste in friends and ability to manage people with kindness. I told Sam that I wasn't comfortable doing that, and that I felt like she was trying to manipulate me into publicly praising her. He told me she was just nervous and wanted to make sure the wedding went perfectly, and that I should try to be supportive. I explained that her requests were beyond normal wedding etiquette and were personally offensive, but he said I was overreacting. After that conversation, I tried to minimize contact with both of them, but Rachel continued to send increasingly demanding messages, often copied to Sam. She sent me a spreadsheet of suggested outfits, complete with acceptable colors, patterns, and accessories. She made a point to tell me that any deviation would be disrespectful to the ceremony and to the family. She also sent me a schedule of approved social interactions and asked me to rank my interest in small talk with each of Sam's friends and relatives. At this point, I felt completely suffocated. I told Sam I didn't want to attend the wedding if I had to adhere to Rachel's rules, and I suggested that we at least have a private conversation to figure out a compromise. Sam refused, saying that I could either follow her guidelines or stay home. He said attending the wedding was my choice, but it would be awkward for everyone if I didn't comply. I eventually decided to step back entirely. I wrote Sam a message explaining that I loved him and supported him, but could not attend under these conditions. I mentioned that I hoped we could have a relationship after the wedding, but that I could not be part of what I felt was a toxic and manipulative dynamic. Sam was furious. He accused me of letting Rachel drive a wedge between us and of being selfish for not prioritizing his happiness over my feelings. He told me that I was choosing to be offended by normal wedding planning and that he couldn't believe I was willing to miss his wedding over something so minor. Since then, our family has been split. Some members think I'm justified because Rachel's behavior has been controlling and inappropriate, while others think I overreacted and should have attended to support my brother. My parents are frustrated and confused because they don't want me to be estranged from Sam, but they also see some of Rachel's controlling tendencies. Sam hasn't spoken to me since I sent him that message, and every time I try to reach out, he either ignores me or sends a short, cold reply. I understand that weddings are stressful, and I know people often try to manage them meticulously, but this felt different. It felt like Rachel was trying to micromanage my life and force me to act a certain way to make her look good. I really don't want to burn bridges with Sam, but I also feel that attending under those conditions will be compromising my values and my mental health. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding because of his fiancée's behavior. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she lost her job. I, 28F, have been living in my apartment for the past 4 years. It's a modest 2-bedroom place, but it's mine and I take pride in how I've made it feel like a home. I live alone, which I genuinely enjoy, and I've worked hard to maintain a quiet, organized space that reflects my personality. About 6 months ago, my younger sister, Emma, 24F, had a rough time. She lost her job at a retail store and was evicted from her apartment because she couldn't pay rent. She reached out to me, and I reluctantly agreed to let her stay for a few weeks until she figured things out. From the beginning, it was a bit rocky. It isn't just about tough times. It's about respecting boundaries and taking responsibility. I recently confronted my parents and explained that if they want to pressure me into letting Emma stay, they'll have to accept that I might limit my interactions with them until they respect my decisions. That conversation didn't go well, and I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. I want to support my sister, but I also don't want to be trapped in a situation where I feel resentful and unhappy. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in with me after she lost her job and eviction. I feel like I'm doing the right thing for both my mental health and the principle of respecting personal boundaries, but my family seems to think otherwise. Since then, Emma has hinted she might try to convince me again once she's saved a little money. I'm prepared to stick to my decision, but I worry about the ongoing family tension and the potential fallout from being labeled selfish. Has anyone been in a similar situation? I'm really torn because I love my sister, but I also have to live my life. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new husband. I, 32F, have always been close to my sister, Jenna, 30F. We grew up in the same household, shared a room until I was 15, and have always been each other's go-to for advice, emotional support, and sometimes just venting about life. Our relationship hasn't been perfect, typical sibling disagreements over trivial things, but I would say we're very close. My problem started about a year ago when Jenna began dating someone new, Mark, 33M. At first, I tried to keep an open mind. Mark is charming and has a successful career, so on paper, he seems like a good match for her. However, the more time I spent around him, the more red flags I noticed. The first thing that struck me was how controlling he was, even in subtle ways. At a family dinner, he criticized the way Jenna spoke about her job, saying she didn't understand finances properly. I tried to brush it off, thinking maybe it was a one-off comment, but over time, these comments became more frequent and more personal. The second major red flag was how he treated people around him. I have a large extended family, and Mark has never made an effort to engage or even acknowledge anyone beyond superficial small talk. He has a tendency to make condescending remarks about people's education, career choices, and even their parenting styles, which has caused several heated conversations during family gatherings. The last time he was at my parents' house, he criticized my mother's cooking in front of everyone, claiming it was amateurish and not worth the effort. Everyone was uncomfortable, and I tried to intervene politely, but he just brushed me off with a smirk. Despite my concerns, I tried to be supportive of Jenna. She seemed genuinely happy with him, and I didn't want to be the sister who constantly interfered in her life. But then, about 6 months ago, things escalated. Jenna confided in me that Mark was subtly manipulating her finances. He insisted that all joint expenses be routed through an account he controlled and made comments about how she needed guidance to manage her money. When she brought up wanting to invest in a small business venture she had been dreaming about, he dismissed it, calling it unrealistic and immature. I was furious when I heard this. I voiced my concerns to Jenna gently, trying not to come across as judgmental. I told her that I felt like Mark's behavior was controlling and that I was worried she might be getting into a pattern that could hurt her in the long run. She got defensive, saying I was overreacting and that she could handle her relationship herself. I understood that she needed to make her own decisions, but I also felt like I couldn't ignore what I was seeing. Fast forward to her engagement announcement. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and I accepted initially because I wanted to support her and not cause a family rift. As the wedding planning progressed, I noticed more behaviors that concerned me. Mark was making all decisions, from the guest list to the venue, and he even tried to dictate aspects of the ceremony that traditionally involved the bride's family, like choosing the music for the father-daughter dance and vetoing certain flowers because he claimed they clashed with the theme. Jenna seemed increasingly stressed, and it was clear to me that she was deferring to him more than ever. I reached a breaking point when she asked me to help plan a bridal shower. I went along initially, thinking I could make it a pleasant event for her, but Mark started attending all the planning meetings and making comments about the budget, the decorations, and even the guest list. At one point, he criticized the gift idea I suggested, saying it was cheap and tacky, which made me uncomfortable because it was a thoughtful, handmade item. I expressed my discomfort to Jenna, saying that I felt like her fiancé was overstepping and that it was affecting my ability to contribute. Jenna brushed it off, saying he just wanted everything to be perfect and that I was taking it too personally. The final straw came 2 weeks before the wedding. Mark explicitly told me that he didn't want me at the rehearsal dinner because he didn't like the way I interact with people, implying that I might embarrass him or Jenna. I was shocked and hurt. I tried talking to Jenna about it, but she said she couldn't confront him and that I should just accept it for the sake of the wedding. I felt like my presence was being actively rejected by her fiancé and that she wasn't willing to advocate for me. After a lot of thought, I made the difficult decision to decline attending the wedding altogether. I wrote Jenna a long letter explaining my feelings. I told her that I loved her and wanted her to be happy, but I could not in good conscience attend a celebration where her partner had repeatedly shown disrespect to her, her family, and me. I emphasized that my decision was about protecting my own boundaries and mental health, not about punishing her. Her reaction was devastating. She called me repeatedly, crying, and accused me of being selfish, controlling, and judgmental. She said that I was tearing our family apart and that Mark was a good man who loved her and would never hurt her. She even said that by not attending, I was signaling that I didn't support her marriage. I tried to explain that supporting her did not mean ignoring red flags or enabling someone's toxic behavior, but she wouldn't hear it. Our parents are upset with me as well, saying I should put family first and that my refusal will create unnecessary tension. Some friends and extended family members have voiced mixed opinions. A few understand my perspective and say that it's reasonable to protect my mental health and boundaries. Others think I overreacted and should have gone to the wedding for the sake of my sister, regardless of her fiancé's behavior. I feel torn. On one hand, I deeply love my sister and don't want to create lifelong resentment. On the other hand, I also feel like attending would compromise my own values and send a message that I condone Mark's behavior. I've been second-guessing myself constantly, wondering if I overstepped or if I'm justified in my decision. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her new husband? AITA for refusing to help my brother financially after he deliberately ignored my boundaries and is now blaming me for his situation? I, 32F, have always tried to maintain a healthy boundary when it comes to money, especially with my family. My parents raised me to be generous, but they also taught me that enabling bad decisions doesn't help anyone in the long run. I have a younger brother, Mark, 29M, who has a history of poor financial decisions. He's smart and capable, but he has never been great at managing money, and over the years, he's asked for help multiple times, some of which I gave. Recently, however, I started being stricter with my boundaries. A few months ago, Mark called me saying he needed money to cover his rent because he had overextended himself with some new business venture. This is a familiar pattern. I calmly reminded him that I had helped him in the past, but I would no longer be giving him money unless there was a solid plan and he was willing to take real steps to fix his finances. I even offered to help him create a budget or find a financial advisor, but he dismissed it, saying he didn't need that kind of lecture and that he just needed cash immediately. I said no. A week later, he showed up at my door. I had told him I wasn't comfortable lending him money, and I thought the conversation was over. But he came anyway, arguing that I was being selfish and that family should help family. He claimed he was desperate and that I was the only one who could help him. I stood my ground. I reminded him again that helping him without him addressing the root problem wouldn't do him any good and that it was not my responsibility to bail him out every time. He got angry and left, saying I was ruining our relationship and that I was heartless. A few weeks later, I found out through our parents that he had fallen behind on rent, gotten a notice from his landlord, and was now in a bigger financial mess. Mark had not reached out to any financial advisor or attempted to create a budget, as I suggested. Instead, he had taken out a high-interest loan from a payday lender, which made things even worse. Our parents suggested I should step in because he was clearly struggling and that maybe I should just give him the money to prevent disaster. I refused again, and this is where the family drama escalated. Mark started sending me texts accusing me of not caring about him, saying I had abandoned him when he needed me the most. He also called me selfish in front of my parents when they tried to mediate. At this point, I was starting to feel frustrated because he was deliberately ignoring the advice and help I offered while simultaneously blaming me for the consequences of his own choices. I tried explaining that giving him money without him changing his habits wouldn't help him in the long term. I even suggested he take on a part-time job or consolidate his debts with professional guidance. He refused both. Things reached a boiling point last week. He sent me a long message accusing me of ruining his life and suggested that I didn't love him because I wouldn't rescue him. I replied firmly but calmly, outlining that I loved him, but that love doesn't mean ignoring consequences or supporting bad financial decisions. I reminded him that I had offered practical help like budgeting and financial planning, which he refused. After I sent this, he blocked me on social media and hasn't spoken to me since. Now, my parents are upset with me. They say I should have done something and that Mark is in crisis. They argue that family helps family, and I'm being too harsh. I feel caught between wanting to help my brother and maintaining boundaries that I believe are necessary for both of us. I am worried that if I give him money now, it will set a precedent and make him expect help again in the future, which could harm our relationship even more. Some friends have told me I'm doing the right thing and that setting boundaries is important, especially when passed. Experiences show that giving money hasn't solved anything. Others think I'm being cold and should just lend him the money to keep peace in the family. I understand both sides, but I also feel that Mark needs to face the consequences of his decisions to learn and grow. I am now in a position where I am getting pressure from multiple angles. My brother is angry and blaming me. My parents are disappointed, and some extended family have weighed in saying I should just help him to avoid a bigger family conflict. I am stressed and second-guessing myself because I never imagined a situation like this would strain my relationship with my brother to this extent. I want to support him emotionally and help him figure out a plan, but I cannot justify giving him money that he will likely misuse. I'm trying to balance compassion with responsibility, but I wonder if I'm being unreasonable or selfish by standing firm. AITA for refusing to give my brother money despite his crisis, especially given the family pressure and his accusations. Character count, 6,468. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée move in with us temporarily and causing a huge family fight. So, a bit of context first. I, 33F, live in a moderately sized 3-bedroom apartment with my partner, Mark, 35M, in a fairly big city. We've been together for 10 years and have always tried to maintain a balance between comfort and having guests over. We've hosted family before, but usually it's for a couple of nights or a week at most. Long-term stays have always been tricky for us because of space and our daily routines. My younger brother, Alex, 28M, has been dating his fiancée, Jenna, 27F, for 3 years. They've been living together for about 2 years now. Recently, Jenna's job transferred her temporarily to a different city about 300 miles away from us. She asked Alex if she could stay with us for a few months until she can get an apartment there. Alex immediately called me and Mark to ask if this would be possible, saying that she really didn't want to deal with the stress of moving into a temporary rental or a hotel for months. At first, I told him that we need to think about it. 3 months is a long time for someone to live in a place that's not their own, especially since we both work from home and value our private routines. I explained this to Alex and said that if it were only a week or two, it wouldn't be an issue, but a few months would significantly disrupt our space and schedule. Alex seemed frustrated, but said he understood and would talk to Jenna. A week later, he called again, and this time he was insistent. He said Jenna was very stressed about the move and that she would really appreciate the stability of staying with us. He added that she could use the guest bedroom, and he promised she wouldn't be a burden. He also said we could think of it as helping family out. I told him honestly that while we love both of them, we had to prioritize our living situation and daily lives. I explained that we aren't a hotel or short-term rental and that our apartment isn't really set up for long-term guests. I also mentioned that our dog, Simba, can get anxious with new people around for extended periods. I said that if she came for more than a week, it would create too much disruption and we couldn't commit to it. Alex didn't take it well. He got upset and said I was being selfish and unwelcoming to family. He implied that I was prioritizing our comfort over helping someone in need, and that if the roles were reversed, I would expect the same generosity. I tried to explain that temporary help doesn't necessarily have to come at the expense of our daily life, but he kept pushing. A couple of days later, Jenna called me directly. She was very polite, but clearly disappointed. She explained that she understood if it wasn't possible, but she thought we might be willing since we've helped family before. She said she didn't want to cause tension, but was feeling stressed and unsure where else to go. I reiterated that we couldn't host her for months and suggested a few short-term rental options nearby that might be more suitable. I also offered to help her look for apartments in the city where she was being transferred. After that, things escalated. Alex and Jenna came to visit our parents over the weekend, and during the dinner, Alex openly criticized me in front of everyone. He said it was so typical of me to shut out family when they need help, and that I was making things unnecessarily hard for Jenna. My parents tried to mediate, saying maybe I could compromise and let her stay a couple of weeks, but I stuck to my stance. I said I wasn't comfortable hosting someone for months, and that a short visit of a few days was fine, but beyond that, it would strain our household. The fight ended with Alex storming out and calling me selfish multiple times. Jenna looked embarrassed, but didn't say much. Since then, our relationship with both of them has been tense. They've barely spoken to us, and our parents keep hinting that we should be more accommodating to family. Mark supports me fully, but he's also worried about the long-term impact on family dynamics. Here's where I need judgment. I genuinely feel that I was reasonable. Hosting someone for a few nights, or even a week, is completely fine, but a few months is a huge commitment and would interfere with our routines, privacy and comfort. We even try to offer alternative help, like helping her find an apartment and providing suggestions for temporary rentals. However, Alex and Jenna clearly feel hurt and think I should have just said yes. I don't want to be seen as cold or uncaring, but I also don't want to compromise our household boundaries. So, AITA for refusing to let Jenna stay with us for months and sticking to my boundaries despite family pressure. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé participate in our family wedding because of his behavior. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 25F. We grew up in a small town, and our parents have always been very family-oriented. I got engaged last year to my partner, James, 30M, and we immediately started planning a wedding that would include everyone we love. Emily, of course, was ecstatic and kept saying she couldn't wait to be part of it, which made me happy. The problem started when Emily introduced her fiancé, Derek, 27M, who she has been dating for a little over a year. At first, I tried to keep an open mind. Derek seemed charming in small doses, and Emily clearly liked him a lot. But as time went on, his behavior became increasingly concerning. Early on, he made a lot of jokes that I found off-putting. They were not just harmless. They were often at my expense, mocking my career, my relationship, or even my hobbies in ways that felt cruel rather than playful. I tried to brush it off, telling myself maybe it was just his sense of humor and that he would mellow out. Emily, however, often laughed along or said I was being too sensitive, which was frustrating. Things escalated when we started wedding planning. I wanted a small bridal party consisting of my closest friends and Emily, but Derek started inserting himself into every conversation. He criticized choices I had made, like the caterer, the venue, and even the color scheme. When I asked Emily to set some boundaries, she said she would talk to him, but didn't. I ended up having to deal with his commentary every time we met. The tipping point came at the bridal dress shopping. I had invited Emily and 2 friends to go with me. Derek insisted on coming, saying he wanted to support Emily. I told him politely that this was a girls' event and that he didn't need to come. He ignored me and showed up anyway. Once he was there, he spent the entire time making snide remarks about the dresses I tried on, laughing at my selections, and loudly stating that he could do better. The consultant and my friends were visibly uncomfortable. I asked him to leave, and he finally did, but Emily was upset with me for embarrassing him in public. After that, I had a long conversation with Emily and made it clear that if Derek continued to behave like this, he would not be allowed to participate in any official capacity in my wedding. I explained that this wasn't personal against him, but his behavior was disrespectful to me and my guests. Emily seemed torn, but said she understood. A few weeks later, I sent out the invitations. Derek, however, decided to comment on social media that he felt excluded and that he was being treated unfairly. Emily texted me, asking if I could reconsider and let him have a role, maybe as an usher or part of the ceremony in some minor way. I told her I couldn't do that. I suggested that he could attend the wedding as a guest, but not in any official capacity because his past behavior had been disruptive and disrespectful. Emily was furious. She accused me of being controlling and said that I was trying to ruin her relationship. Our parents got involved after she called them crying, and they asked me to reconsider. I explained the situation, but my parents said that they didn't want drama and that it might be better to just let Derek have a role so Emily wouldn't be upset. I refused. I felt that this was my wedding, not theirs, and I had the right to set boundaries. The family tension has since exploded. Emily has stopped talking to me. Derek is posting passive-aggressive comments on social media, and my parents are giving me the cold shoulder. Some extended family members have messaged me saying I should be nicer and compromise for Emily's sake. I understand that weddings can be emotional and that families often clash, but I genuinely feel that Derek's behavior was toxic and I should not be forced to include him in my wedding. James supports me completely. He says he wouldn't want someone like Derek involved either. However, Emily has told other family members that I am being cruel and trying to control her life, and it's turning into a bigger issue than just the wedding itself. I don't want to alienate my sister, but I also feel strongly about protecting my space and my celebration. I want to know, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé participate in my wedding due to his past behavior, even though it has caused a rift with my sister and parents. The wedding is still months away, but the stress and family drama are already overwhelming. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house, even though he's homeless. I, 32F, live in a 3-bedroom townhouse in a suburban area. I bought it about 6 years ago, and it's taken a lot of time, effort, and money to get it to a place where I feel comfortable and secure. I've always been independent, and while I do help family sometimes, I have clear boundaries, especially when it comes to my home. My younger sister, Emily, 29F, has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 31M, for about 3 years. Mark has had a rough patch in life. He lost his job about a year ago, and since then, he's been struggling to find steady employment. He has had a few temporary positions here and there, but nothing consistent. During this time, he's also been living in very unstable conditions, moving between friend apartments, sometimes staying in his car. Emily has been trying to help him out financially and emotionally, but their situation has been tense. Last week, Emily called me in tears. Mark had just been evicted from his most recent temporary living arrangement, and she said he had nowhere to go. She asked if he could stay at my house until he gets back on his feet. She emphasized that it would be temporary, maybe a few weeks at most, and that she would cover any cost that came up. I told her I couldn't agree. I have my own life, and my townhouse is small. I work long hours and use my home as my personal sanctuary. I also have a roommate, though she's been out of town for work for a few months, which is why my sister thought this might be a good time. I explained that I could help in other ways. I could give them money for a short-term Airbnb, help them apply for local housing assistance, and even help Mark network for jobs. I told Emily that my home isn't the place for someone who isn't contributing to the household financially or otherwise, especially given the stress that comes with his current situation. Emily cried over the phone and accused me of being selfish and cold-hearted. She said this was a family emergency and that I should help because he's practically family now. She also brought up the fact that I've had financial success and a stable home for years and could easily absorb a few weeks of inconvenience. I stuck to my decision, and Mark ended up crashing on a friend's couch a few towns over. Emily was furious and hasn't spoken to me much since. Our parents got involved too, and they're kind of split. They understand my perspective, but feel I should have at least offered some kind of temporary arrangement. The more I think about it, the more stressed I get. I worry that I'm being selfish, but I also worry about the precedent it sets for my home and personal space. If I let him stay, what stops other family members from asking for long-term accommodations when they're struggling? I also don't trust that Mark is ready to handle being in someone else's home responsibly. He has a history of leaving things messy, forgetting bills, and generally not taking full responsibility for his life. My friends are divided. Some say I did the right thing, pointing out that he's an adult and needs to take accountability. Others think I should have at least given him a chance for a few nights, especially because he has no other options. I've offered alternatives. I contacted a few local shelters and halfway houses. I suggested short-term Airbnb options that Emily could help fund, and I've even offered to help Mark with resume writing and interview prep. Emily claims that none of these solutions are adequate and that my refusal is hurting her relationship. I feel stuck. I want to help my sister and her fiancé, but I also need to protect my own mental health and the safety and cleanliness of my home. I can't shake the feeling that if I let him stay, it could create tension or even resentment between us in the long term. So AITA for refusing to let Mark stay at my house, even though he's homeless, and my sister asked me for help. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a years-long family feud. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding. I honestly feel conflicted, but I also think my decision is justified given the circumstances. I'll try to explain everything clearly. A little context. I, 33F, have a younger sister, Emily, 29F. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but we had a very competitive dynamic. Our parents often compared us, sometimes praising one of us while criticizing the other. Over the years, this pattern led to a lot of resentment and tension. As adults, I moved out and built my own life, trying to distance myself from the toxic patterns in my family. Emily, meanwhile, stayed closer to our parents and has always seemed to thrive on their approval. About 5 years ago, things escalated. I had been saving for a down payment on a house, working 2 jobs, and carefully budgeting. I mentioned to Emily that I was struggling to make ends meet because of student loans and other expenses. Instead of being supportive, she made a snide comment at a family dinner, implying that I must be bad with money because I wasn't as successful as she was. I was hurt, but I brushed it off at first. The tipping point came when she got engaged. She announced her engagement in a family group chat and immediately started asking everyone for their contributions to the wedding fund. She sent personalized messages to each family member, implying that if they didn't contribute, it would be a big disappointment. When it came to me, she sent a message saying, "I know money is tight for you, but any little amount helps. I just hope you care enough to make a sacrifice for me." I felt blindsided and manipulated. I responded politely, saying that I couldn't contribute financially right now due to my expenses. She replied with a long message about how family should always support each other and how disappointing it was that I wasn't willing to help. I didn't respond further, and things became icy between us. Over the next few years, the tension didn't really subside. Every family event felt like walking on eggshells. Emily continued to make subtle digs at me in front of our parents, often praising them for giving her advice or support, while implying that I had made poor choices in my life. My parents, who are very traditional, tried to mediate but often ended up pressuring me to forgive and forget instead of addressing her behavior. I complied superficially in public, but privately, I was growing resentful. Fast forward to last month. Emily set a date for her wedding. When the invitations came, it included an RSVP with a message. "We hope everyone can attend, but we understand if life gets in the way. However, your presence really matters to me, so I hope you make it." I immediately felt the old manipulation creeping in. My partner, Jake, has been supportive of my decision to set boundaries and suggested that I consider what attending would mean for my mental health. I try to reason with my family. I explained to my parents that I would not be attending because I couldn't be around the passive-aggressive comments and the pressure to financially contribute. I also mentioned that I felt that Emily had not treated me kindly over the years, and attending the wedding would require me to ignore those feelings entirely, which I wasn't willing to do. My parents were shocked and upset. They accused me of being selfish and said I was ruining Emily's special day by not showing up. They even suggested that I could attend quietly and avoid interacting with her. I explained that it wasn't that simple, because the underlying tension would make it impossible for me to be genuinely present. Emily found out I wasn't attending when my parents mentioned it to her. She sent me a long text expressing hurt and anger, saying that I was choosing to punish her instead of showing family loyalty. She claimed that my absence would be a huge stain on the family and that I was selfish for putting my feelings above hers. I tried to respond calmly, stating that my decision wasn't meant to punish her, but rather to protect my own mental health. I emphasized that I still cared about her and wished her well, but I could not attend under these circumstances. She replied once more, telling me that my selfishness had caused irreparable damage to our relationship. Since then, my parents have been pressuring me even more, saying that I should reconsider and that family comes first. Some extended family members have reached out, taking Emily's side and calling me cold and ungrateful. Jake and I have talked a lot about this, and he supports my decision, reminding me that setting boundaries is healthy and sometimes necessary, even if it upsets people. I feel torn because I do love my sister and I don't want to permanently damage our relationship. But at the same time, I cannot ignore years of toxic behavior and be expected to celebrate as if everything is fine. My friends are divided too. Some say I'm justified in protecting my mental health, while others think I'm overreacting and that a wedding is a moment to put aside differences. I am posting here because I want an honest assessment. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding, given the years of tension, financial pressure, and manipulation I've experienced. AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house during my wedding week. I, 32F, have always been very close with my family, especially my younger sister, Claire, 28F. We grew up together, went through everything together, and I've always been the one organizing family events and keeping everyone connected. Claire has always been more spontaneous and sometimes a bit reckless, but I love her dearly and have always supported her decisions. My wedding is coming up in about a month, and I've been planning it for over a year. My fiancé, Daniel, 34M, and I decided to have the wedding in a small town near where I grew up because it has sentimental value to both of us. We're keeping the guest list limited to close friends and family, and we rented a large Airbnb near the venue so that anyone coming from out of town can stay nearby. Claire has been dating a guy named Ryan for about 6 months. I have met him a few times, and to be honest, I'm not a huge fan. He's charming in short bursts, but he has a tendency to dominate conversations, belittle other people's opinions, and push boundaries without considering anyone else. I've seen him make Claire cry once because she wanted to leave a party early and he insisted on staying. She told me later that she regretted ever dating him, but she decided to give the relationship another chance. A couple of weeks ago, Claire called me and said that she and Ryan were planning a drive down for the wedding and asked if he could stay at my house for a few days before the wedding. She explained that their car was having some mechanical issues and renting a hotel room would be expensive for them. She framed it as, just for a couple of nights, we'll be gone most of the day anyway. I immediately felt uneasy. Our house is not huge, and I had already made arrangements for some family members who were flying in from overseas to stay with us. The Airbnb is reserved for everyone else, and I honestly didn't want Ryan in the house at all. I told Claire that I didn't think it was a good idea for him to stay at my house during wedding week, mainly because I was worried about stress and dynamics in an already tense week. I offered to help her find a nearby hotel, and I even suggested a few places that were affordable. Claire didn't take it well. She said I was being unreasonable and mean because I had always helped her out in the past. She reminded me of times when I let her stay at my house during college or when she had financial trouble, and said I was picking favorites by not letting Ryan stay. She accused me of letting my bias against him get in the way of helping family. I tried to explain that this wasn't about favoritism, but about logistics and my own mental well-being during a week that I wanted to be as stress-free as possible. I also mentioned that Ryan had a history of causing tension in family settings, and I was not willing to risk a conflict during my wedding. The conversation escalated, and she eventually said, "If you can't let me and Ryan stay, maybe I won't come to your wedding at all." That felt manipulative, and I stayed firm but calm. I told her I wanted her there and that I hoped she would come, but she needed to make her own arrangements if she wanted to be comfortable. After that, things have been tense between us. Our parents called me, trying to mediate, and they seemed to think I was being too rigid. My dad said, "It's just a few nights. He's part of the family now. Let's slide." I explained that I wasn't comfortable with him in the house during the wedding week and that it wasn't about him being family. It was about timing and the stress of hosting multiple people. My mom said I should just bite the bullet and let him stay to keep Claire happy. I feel stuck because I don't want to cause a fight with my sister, but I also don't want to compromise my own peace of mind in the atmosphere during the wedding week. The Airbnb is booked, the seating arrangements are finalized, and I want everything to run smoothly without having to deal with potential drama from Ryan. I also feel that letting him stay would send a message that he is as important as the family members who have been supportive for years, and I'm not sure I'm ready to make that leap. Claire hasn't spoken to me since our argument. She posted on social media a picture of herself with Ryan and a caption about family being selfish and controlling, which obviously hurt. Daniel thinks I did the right thing by setting boundaries, but he's worried this might permanently damage my relationship with my sister. I'm torn because I want my sister at my wedding, but I also want to maintain boundaries and protect my own mental health. I've tried offering compromises, like helping cover the cost of a hotel or finding a rental car, so their transportation issues wouldn't be a problem, but Claire keeps insisting it's not enough. Every time I think about backing down, I feel resentful and stressed, which is exactly what I want to avoid in the week leading up to my wedding. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house during my wedding week. I feel like I'm protecting my mental health and the peaceful atmosphere of the wedding, but my sister thinks I'm being selfish and controlling. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after a decade-long family feud. I, 34 am, have a complicated relationship with my family, especially my sister, Julia, 36F. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and from that point on, our family dynamics became messy. My sister and I grew apart largely because she always sided with our mom, who I felt was manipulative and controlling, while I got along better with our dad. Over the years, I've tried to maintain some level of civility, but the tension never truly went away. About 10 years ago, things came to a head when Julia accused me of stealing from her during a family vacation. I had no idea what she was talking about at the time, but she made a huge scene in front of everyone. Our parents didn't back me up, and even though the accusation was later found to be baseless, it left a lasting mark. Since then, our interactions have been minimal, mostly polite but distant. Recently, Julia announced her engagement. At first, I was hesitant to even respond, but my dad encouraged me to congratulate her and be part of the wedding because, as he put it, life is too short to hold grudges. I thought about it, and I considered attending. I reached out to Julia privately and congratulated her. She seemed cordial, but there was a hint of coldness. I figured that was normal given our history and tried to let it go. The real issue started when Julia sent out her invitations. The wedding was in a different state, and she had a strict guest list due to the venue size. I was included, which initially felt like a peace offering, but then I noticed that other family members who had supported me through various conflicts were not invited. My cousin Ben, who had always been close to me, and my Aunt Diane, who had stood up for me during family disputes, were excluded. I asked my dad about it, and he said Julia wanted a small, intimate wedding and that he couldn't interfere. I felt hurt and marginalized, especially since my presence was only required for appearances. A few weeks later, I learned from a mutual family friend that Julia had made some comments about me to other relatives. She allegedly said that I was toxic and that my presence would ruin the mood at the wedding. This friend also mentioned that she had no intention of personally acknowledging me during the ceremony and that she viewed my congratulations as insincere. I was shocked. I had genuinely tried to reach out in good faith, but it seemed like she had already decided that I was an enemy. I confronted my dad about this, asking if he had any insight. He admitted he had heard similar rumors, but said he didn't want to get involved, suggesting I either attend to keep the peace or stay home to protect myself. I felt trapped and emotionally exhausted. Attending the wedding now felt like being forced into a situation where I was not wanted and where I might be publicly embarrassed. I didn't want to ruin her day, but I also didn't want to be humiliated or treated like an outsider in my own family. After much deliberation, I decided not to attend. I sent Julia a message explaining my decision, emphasizing that it wasn't about refusing to acknowledge her happiness, but about preserving my own mental health. I said that I hoped the wedding went well and that I wished her and her fiancé happiness. My message was polite and calm, but she reacted very negatively. She called me selfish, accused me of holding grudges, and said that my absence would confirm everything she ever thought about me. My parents were upset too, especially my mom, who called me immature and cold. Since then, family gatherings have become tense. Some relatives support my decision, acknowledging that I shouldn't be forced into a situation where I feel unwelcome, while others criticize me for making everything about myself and ruining family unity. I've been accused of being dramatic and refusing to forgive, but I genuinely feel that my attempt to bridge the gap was met with hostility and manipulation, leaving me with little choice. I understand that weddings are important and that my absence might hurt some family members, but I also feel that being present in an environment where I am disrespected or deliberately excluded would be damaging to my well-being. I'm struggling to navigate the balance between family loyalty and self-respect. Some friends have told me I did the right thing, while others say I overreacted and should have attended for the sake of appearances. I haven't received any apology or attempt at reconciliation from Julia. My dad is disappointed, my mom is frustrated, and the rest of the family is split. I've been thinking about whether I could have handled it differently, perhaps attending but keeping my distance, but I'm also wary of being used as a prop for family optics. I feel stuck in a moral gray area. Am I justified in protecting myself, or should I have put aside past grievances to support my sister on one of the most important days of her life? I like to hear an outside perspective. I know families are complicated, but I genuinely want to do the right thing without sacrificing my dignity. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding given the circumstances? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened last Christmas? This has been eating at me, and I need some outside perspective because my family thinks I'm being unreasonable. So, some background. I, 28F, have a sister, Emily, 32F, and we have always had a complicated relationship. We grew up close, but as adults, things have gotten tense, mostly because of her controlling nature and how she treats other people, especially me. My parents have always been closer to her and tend to ignore some of her more manipulative behaviors, which has added a lot of stress for me over the years. Last Christmas, I decided to host my family at my apartment, including my parents and Emily with her fiancé, Mark. I spent weeks preparing, cooking, decorating, and even buying thoughtful gifts for everyone. I wanted it to be a warm, stress-free holiday. The plan was simple. We'd exchange gifts, have dinner, and play some games afterward. My partner, Tom, was excited too, as he had never experienced a full family Christmas with me. When Emily arrived, everything seemed normal at first. But as soon as dinner started, she began making snide comments about my apartment, saying it was cute but a bit cramped, and then she commented on the food. "Is this all vegetarian?" she asked in a tone that made it clear she thought it was inadequate. I explained that yes, I had made a vegetarian meal because Tom and I are vegetarian, and I had also prepared some meat options for anyone who wanted it. She scoffed and said, "Well, I guess I'll just make do," and dug into the salad. I tried to ignore it, but the comments continued all evening. The breaking point came during gift exchange. I had bought Emily a very thoughtful, high-quality necklace that I had spent a lot of time picking out. When she opened it, she looked at it for a second, then handed it back to me and said, "This isn't really my style. I guess it's okay, but I probably wouldn't wear it." She then handed me a gift that was clearly bought last minute from a gas station, wrapped in newspaper. I forced a smile and thanked her, but I was seething inside. After dinner, we all sat around and started playing board games. Emily refused to play with us and instead went off to scroll through her phone. When Tom asked if she wanted to join, she replied, "I'm good. You all can entertain yourselves." I didn't say anything at that point because I didn't want to start a fight. But later, when everyone was opening dessert, she loudly complained about the cheesecake I had made, saying it looked kind of sad and that I shouldn't bother with homemade desserts if I wasn't going to do it properly. I tried to brush it off and suggested we all watch a Christmas movie, thinking that maybe it would lighten the mood. Emily refused again, saying she was too tired and went to her room. The rest of the night was awkward silence. After my parents and Emily went home, I broke down and told Tom how hurtful it had been. He was upset too, and we both agreed that this wasn't just Emily being a little critical. This felt like she had come with the intention of undermining me and making the evening miserable. Fast forward to now. Emily is getting married in 2 months. She sent me a formal invitation last week, and I told her that I was not going to attend. My reasoning is that I do not feel emotionally safe around her, and I do not want to put myself in a position where she might humiliate me in front of our family again. When I told my parents, they were furious. They said I was being dramatic, that Emily would be devastated, and that it's my duty as her sister to be there. They also accused me of holding grudges and suggested I get over it, because it's a big day for her. I explained that I don't want to burn bridges permanently, but I need to set boundaries. I offered to send her a gift and even suggested a one-on-one lunch with her before the wedding if she really wanted to see me. My parents told me that's not the same as being there in person and accused me of punishing her for something that happened months ago. I pointed out that it's not just about one incident. It's the pattern of behavior over many years. They said I should rise above it and implied that I'm being selfish. Emily herself hasn't reached out directly, but I know my parents have been telling her I refuse to attend. I feel guilty because I know she's excited about her wedding, but I also know that if I go, there's a high likelihood she will make the day about her preferences while belittling me. I'm also worried about the potential emotional toll it would take on me. And honestly, I don't think I can handle being in a room with her for hours without being anxious or resentful. Tom supports me 100%, and some friends I've talked to say that skipping is understandable given how toxic last Christmas was. Others, however, have said that family obligations mean I should try to attend, at least for the sake of appearances. I'm torn because I love my sister at times, but I also need to protect myself. I've considered attending just for the ceremony and leaving immediately after, but I'm not sure if that would even be enough to avoid conflict. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after the way she treated me last Christmas? I'm trying to weigh my mental health against family expectations, but the guilt is eating at me. I want to do the right thing, but I also don't want to put myself through another emotionally draining experience. I'm bracing myself for the backlash from my family, but I genuinely want to hear an honest judgment on whether I'm being unreasonable. I'm not looking to escalate drama. I just need to know if setting this boundary is fair. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she made questionable choices that hurt our family? I, 34F, come from a family that has always been close, though admittedly complicated. My younger sister, Emily, 30F, has always been a bit of a free spirit, prone to making impulsive decisions. I, on the other hand, have always been more cautious and calculated in life. Growing up, our parents often sided with Emily because they believed she needed extra support, while I was expected to handle my own problems. This dynamic has followed us into adulthood. A few years ago, Emily got married to a man named Tom. From the start, their relationship was tumultuous. He had a history of bad financial decisions and questionable behavior, but Emily seemed enamored. Shortly after their wedding, they decided to buy a house together. The catch was that they didn't have enough savings to cover the down payment, so they asked our parents to co-sign a mortgage with them. Our parents, in their usual Emily can do no wrong mindset, agreed. I was hesitant, but didn't get directly involved, as it wasn't my obligation. Fast forward a year, Emily and Tom's financial situation became chaotic. They were constantly asking our parents for loans, claiming emergencies that, in reality, were caused by their own poor choices. Our parents, feeling guilty and wanting to help, kept giving them money, but it never seemed to be enough. Meanwhile, I had been building my own savings, paying off my student loans, and making careful investments. I watched my parents get increasingly stressed, and I tried to offer advice, but Emily rarely took it. 2 years ago, Tom lost his job, and Emily asked our parents again for money, this time to cover living expenses. My parents were drained and reluctantly asked me to help since I was financially stable. I agreed to lend a small amount, but I made it clear it was a one-time thing. Emily got upset, claiming I was being selfish because I had money but wasn't giving enough. I tried to explain that lending her a substantial amount could jeopardize my own stability, but she didn't understand. Recently, the situation escalated. Emily and Tom decided to start a business, claiming it was their big chance to finally be financially independent. Naturally, they asked our parents for a significant investment. My parents were hesitant, but ultimately agreed after much persuasion. They also hinted at asking me for support, but I firmly declined, citing my own financial obligations and long-term plans. Emily immediately became furious, accusing me of betraying her and letting her down when she needed family most. What made this situation worse was that Emily had spent the money from previous loans frivolously. She bought luxury items, went on expensive trips, and invested in things that had no real value. Our parents, who were already financially stretched, started asking me if I could help cover some of the business expenses to prevent them from being in real trouble. I said no. I offered advice on budgeting and potential ways to generate income without asking for loans, but I refused to give money. Emily's reaction was extreme. She began posting on social media about how I was the evil sister who refused to support family in times of need. She told mutual friends and extended family that I was heartless and only care about money, which isn't true. I have helped in non-financial ways, such as assisting with childcare, driving them to appointments, and even helping them set up their business legally and logistically. My assistance was always practical and time-consuming, but apparently, because it wasn't money, it didn't count. The tension has now reached a breaking point. My parents are frustrated with me because they feel I could do more. Emily is hostile whenever we meet, and even some extended family members have expressed disappointment. They argue that family should support each other, no matter what, and I should prioritize helping Emily even if it means taking financial risks. I understand their point of view, but I also feel strongly that enabling her poor financial decisions would be harmful in the long run. I have a responsibility to myself and my immediate family to maintain stability, and I've seen what happens when Emily gets too much support. It leads to dependency and more reckless choices. I also want to mention that this isn't just about money. It's about accountability. Emily refuses to acknowledge that her spending habits and lack of financial planning have contributed to the problem. Tom has a history of ignoring responsibilities, and Emily has repeatedly chosen to ignore advice. I don't want to reward bad decisions, even if it means being labeled as the villain. Recently, my parents called me crying, telling me that Emily had accused them of trying to turn the family against her because they wouldn't give more money. They admitted they were exhausted and wanted my support, but I stood firm. I offered emotional support, guidance, and even helped brainstorm solutions that didn't involve handing over large sums of money. Emily responded by cutting off communication with me for a month and telling family members I was being cruel. I have tried everything to explain my perspective without being confrontational. I've shown Emily and my parents my own budget and expenses, hoping they would understand why giving money isn't feasible. I've also suggested alternatives like crowdfunding the business, taking a second job, or downsizing expenses. None of this matters to Emily. She insists that family should provide financial backing regardless of the consequences. At this point, I feel like I'm being punished for being responsible. I've tried to compromise in ways that are realistic, but it's never enough. My parents are conflicted because they love Emily and want to help, but they also recognize that my refusal to give money isn't out of malice. It's out of caution and concern. I keep telling myself that if I cave, it will only enable more poor decisions and potentially put my own future at risk. So, AITA for refusing to financially help my sister and husband despite their repeated requests and my parents' subtle pressure. I feel trapped between wanting to protect my family, including myself, and the guilt and criticism from my sister, parents, and extended family. I'm not sure if my approach is fair, harsh, or if I'm missing a compromise that would satisfy everyone without jeopardizing my own stability. Has anyone been in a situation like this where a family member repeatedly makes poor financial decisions? How do you balance helping them without enabling bad behavior or compromising your own life? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior and being called selfish. I, 28F, have always been close with my older sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, we had our typical sibling squabbles, but we were mostly best friends. She got married once before in her early 20s, but that marriage ended in divorce after just 2 years. Despite that, she remained optimistic about love, and I always supported her. About a year ago, Emily met someone new, Mike, 35M. At first, I was happy for her. Mike seemed charming, successful, and polite, and Emily appeared genuinely in love. However, over time, I started noticing some behaviors from Mike that didn't sit right with me. At first, I brushed it off as normal quirks. He was a perfectionist about household things and Emily's career choices, which I assumed was harmless concern. But as months went by, these quirks began turning into more controlling behavior. He would criticize Emily's clothing choices, comment negatively on how she spent money, and even subtly belittle her accomplishments. I tried to bring it up once in a gentle way, but Emily brushed it off, saying that Mike was just being particular and that she loved him anyway. Things escalated during family gatherings. Mike would make passive-aggressive comments to me, my parents, and even Emily's friends. He would interrupt conversations, dismiss opinions, and constantly find ways to make Emily the center of attention in ways that made others uncomfortable. The final straw for me was a holiday dinner last December. Mike publicly criticized Emily's mother's cooking, made jokes about my career in front of extended family, and then spent the rest of the evening glaring at anyone who disagreed with him. It was humiliating, and Emily laughed it off. I felt powerless watching the woman I love being treated in ways I would never tolerate myself. After that incident, I had a long conversation with Emily. I told her that I couldn't support her relationship in good conscience if she continued to allow Mike to treat her or anyone else with disrespect. I explained my boundaries clearly. I would not attend family events where he was present if he continued these behaviors. Emily became defensive. She said I was overreacting, that I was judging him unfairly, and that she didn't appreciate me trying to police a relationship. I tried to explain that my concern wasn't about controlling her choices, but about protecting myself and maintaining my own mental health. Fast forward to a month ago, Emily announced her wedding date. I congratulated her, but I also reiterated that I was uncomfortable attending if Mike's behavior didn't improve. Emily became upset, saying that my refusal would hurt her and that I was being selfish. She claimed that she had made so many compromises for the wedding, and I was putting her in a difficult position. I reminded her that my decision wasn't meant to punish her, but to protect myself. We argued for hours, and she accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness. Over the next few weeks, I tried to engage in family counseling and mediation, hoping someone could help Emily see what I was seeing. I suggested attending a session together to address boundaries and expectations. Emily refused. She insisted that I either show up for the wedding or risk losing our relationship. My parents also pressured me heavily. They said I needed to be there because Emily won't forgive me if I stay home and that family appearances mattered more than my discomfort. I ultimately decided that I couldn't attend. I wrote Emily a long letter explaining my reasons, reiterating that I loved her and wanted her happiness, but that I couldn't support a relationship I found harmful. I also offered to spend time with her one-on-one after the wedding, separate from Mike, to maintain our bond. Since then, the fallout has been significant. Emily is furious. She has blocked me on social media, refused phone calls, and told my parents that I am choosing him over family, referring to Mike, even though he had no say in my decision. My parents are upset, too, claiming I am being dramatic and selfish. Several mutual friends have reached out, asking me to reconsider because weddings are about family unity, but I've held my ground. Some extended family members have expressed support, saying that they've seen Mike's behavior too and that my concerns were valid. Others, however, call me overprotective and say I am ruining the wedding vibe. Emily's best friend even messaged me accusing me of trying to manipulate her friend into ending her engagement. I don't feel proud of the situation because I hate conflict and I hate hurting my sister. But I also feel strongly that attending a wedding where I know someone will act abusively toward my sister and others would make me complicit in that behavior. I have been called selfish, controlling, dramatic, and even cruel. My sister hasn't spoken to me in weeks, and our parents are pressuring me to apologize. I'm torn. Part of me worries that I am overreacting and damaging my relationship with my sister irreparably. Another part of me feels that standing up for my boundaries and my values is the right thing, even if it's painful. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. Character count, 6,523. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, even though she's upset with me. 32F, have always been the more organized and detail-oriented sibling compared to my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, I handled most family logistics for birthdays, holidays, and even vacations. I never minded helping, and my parents always seemed to rely on me more than Emily, who is more free-spirited and spontaneous. This dynamic has carried into adulthood, and while Emily has her strengths, planning and executing events is not one of them. Recently, Emily got engaged to her fiancé, Josh, 30M, and immediately began talking about her dream wedding. I was genuinely excited for her and offered to help with anything she needed, from decorations to coordinating vendors. Initially, she seemed appreciative, but over time, I started noticing that she expected me to take on almost all the responsibilities without contributing much herself. I didn't mind contributing ideas, but when I started realizing I was being asked to do most of the heavy lifting, I tried to set some boundaries. The issue began when Emily asked me to host a rehearsal dinner. She said she wanted it to be at my house because it was spacious and centrally located, and implied that since I had the house, it was kind of my duty to host. I immediately said I wasn't comfortable hosting it. I have a small dog who gets anxious around large groups. My kitchen isn't really suited for cooking for 20 people, and hosting such a big event would basically mean me working nonstop for a week before while also cleaning, cooking, and coordinating. On top of that, my own partner, Sam, 34M, had a demanding work schedule, and I didn't want him to feel forced into hosting duties either. Emily got upset and accused me of being selfish. She said hosting was just a normal thing sisters do, and that I was ruining her wedding experience by refusing. I tried to explain my reasons calmly, saying that hosting a rehearsal dinner is a huge task and that it's not something I should feel obligated to do just because I have a house. I offered alternatives, like booking a small restaurant, renting a hall, or even having the dinner at her fiancé's parents' place, but she dismissed these options as inconvenient or not personal enough. When I stood firm, Emily started going through examples of past events I had hosted for family. She reminded me of my brother's birthday party last year and said, "See, you've done this before, so why can't you do it for me?" I reminded her that I had helped with things before, but hosting a birthday party for 12 people is very different from organizing a dinner for 20-plus guests with multiple courses and seating arrangements, especially in a house that isn't equipped for large-scale entertaining. She didn't accept that explanation and said I was being petty and dramatic. Things escalated further when she posted a passive-aggressive comment on social media about how some family members just never step up when it matters. This indirectly referred to me, and several extended family members started messaging me to ask what was wrong. I felt cornered and stressed because I didn't want to fight with her publicly, but at the same time, I didn't want to host the event. To give more context, my relationship with Emily has always been a bit tense when it comes to responsibility. She's very used to getting her way, and any refusal on my part tends to be taken personally. I've learned to protect my boundaries, but this situation is especially tricky because it involves a wedding, which is emotional and important to her. I don't want to be the villain sister, but I also don't want to burn myself out or be responsible for an event that I don't have the energy or resources to manage. After a week of back-and-forth texts, she finally said something that really hurt. She said, "If you can't even do this for me, I don't know if I can count on you for anything during the wedding. Maybe you don't really care about me." I explained that my care for her doesn't mean I have to say yes to everything she asks, and that supporting her can take many forms that don't involve me physically hosting a dinner. I offered to help with decorations, making playlists, and helping her choose a caterer or restaurant, but she said it wasn't the same. A few days later, my parents got involved. They told me that hosting the rehearsal dinner would mean a lot to Emily and implied that I was overreacting. I explained my reasons again, emphasizing that I wasn't refusing to help entirely, just the part that involves hosting at my home. They told me I should suck it up for the sake of family harmony. I tried to stand my ground politely, but the more pressure I felt, the more I doubted myself. At this point, Emily has decided to host the rehearsal dinner at her fiancé's parents' house without me, but she is still upset and hasn't really spoken to me in person since our argument. Family members are divided. Some think I'm justified in setting boundaries, while others believe I should have just hosted to avoid conflict. I feel relieved that I don't have the logistical nightmare on my plate, but I also feel guilty because I can see that my refusal has hurt Emily, who is genuinely excited about her wedding. I guess my main question is this: AITA for refusing to host my sister's rehearsal dinner, even though she sees it as a sister duty? I want to support her and be part of her wedding, but I also don't want to take on a responsibility that I'm not prepared to handle, and that would cause stress for me and my partner. I know weddings are emotional, but I feel like my personal boundaries should matter too. Has anyone else dealt with this kind of family expectation where love and support get confused with obligation? I'm struggling to figure out if I'm being unfair or if standing firm is reasonable. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.